Hey everyone, my name is Alud and welcome to our channel. Today I have a very special guest. His name is Ilija Braun and he's our Customer Insights Manager here at You. Today I'm going to be talking to him to find out what exactly does a Customer Insights Manager does and how does he manage stakeholder expectations here at You. Join me and I promise it will be well worth your time. Thanks. So, Ili, thanks for coming on to the show.
Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. You ready?
Yes,
I have my questions here.
I'm ready.
Let's talk. Hard! So, tell us about yourself. What do you do?
My name is Ilija Braun. I'm working since almost 2 years at You, which is a great neobank in Switzerland, as a business and customer insights manager. Before that, I worked at Post Finance, which is one of the mothers of You. And because You is a joint venture, and here I try to be the ear and the voice of the customer.
The ear and the voice of the customer. What do you mean by that?
So You, in fact, is a startup, or we're trying to be a startup, which is in a corporate entrepreneurship context. So as we have two great mothers behind us, and we're trying to be as customer-centric as possible, but at the same time trying to focus on the business side as well.
Yeah.
So the ear and the voice of the customer is basically when the customer tells us something, I try to push it to the business as good as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And the voice is basically because I try to push it.
Yeah. You always wanted to get into research, or this is something that just you fell into, or it just happened? Can you just reflect on that a little bit?
Into user research, I would say I fell into it. Into research in general, my background is coming from academia. I did a PhD in entrepreneurship, in corporate entrepreneurship. And to come into the user research part, I would say we shouldn't talk about user research, more about customer insights, because there's a little difference between because user research just to get the data somehow, and the insight is to take it to the sales and present it in the end. So yeah, but that I land in the end at customer insights was also just out of pure luck, I would say.
Yeah. But how is it going so far? You like it? You enjoy it?
Yeah.
Is it challenging for you in terms of like from a professional perspective?
From a professional perspective, absolutely. I learn every day something new, I would say. Mm-hmm. From a user research perspective, and also something new about myself. So yeah.
Could you give some examples of the past? I mean, not every day, obviously, but there's some of the stuff that you have learned over the past year and almost 2 years that you've been at You.
Communication is important. I never thought about that because coming from academia, that you write for 1 or 2 years on a paper. Yeah. You write it basically just for yourself, and if you're lucky, you're able to publish it in the end with a review process. But here it's the other way around. So you have to really communicate to the customers, but also to the stakeholders from the company, that the user should be in the center of everything.
Yeah. You also have a PhD. Yeah. For me, university was a nightmare. I just wanted to get it done and over with, and for me, I have an immense amount of respect who do more than just university. Already PhD for me is, I worship those people. Masters, I mean. And PhD is like, I think you're like the god of the universe, because it's just crazy the amount of work and dedication that it requires. So why did you decide to do a PhD, and what was your PhD about?
That's a really good question. First, I have to say I love to get behind things, whether it's search related at Google searches, whether it's related to things I don't know. And I think out of this curiosity, I started my master's degree in the end, and there I had quite a good experience with my master thesis in the end. And then I thought myself, well, why not doing a PhD in the end? In fact, I forgot a couple of months ago that I have a PhD.
Okay.
And this is a fact, which is quite unfortunate. I was looking at a bell at my neighbor's house.
You were looking at what?
At the bell.
At bell, yeah.
And there were basically one guy with a doctor in front of it. And I was like, yeah, this guy's a doctor. Cool. I was like, all right, I have one as well. Because it was just 3 years ago, but it was a huge part of my life. But I didn't do the PhD because of the title in the end. So my focus was on the entrepreneur, on the startup. So I had a look at how as an entrepreneur to be successful. So how to start a business, how to be successful, and how to not up in the end. This was my topic.
Yeah.
And it was the whole spectrum. So from the start, from being a nascent entrepreneur until the entrepreneur itself, until the exit in the end. So, yeah.
Cool. You do realize we need to beep out that word that you said back there. But it's okay. It's cool. It's so cool. This is only YouTube, guys. So
we have to beep.
Yeah, we have to beep. We have to do this. Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Sorry.
But we love you. So we're privileged to have someone like you. Well, first of all, you're super professional, you're super hardworking. Than what I've seen over the past. Well, actually, we started on the same day. We started in 2021 in September, 1st of September. So we're privileged to have you, and we're privileged to have someone like you in general, because most companies can't afford it. I worked in startups before, and we didn't have the luxury to have a customer insights manager. So the question is, what advice would you give to someone working as a product designer or within a product team, but people who do not have the resources like we have to have someone like you to do customer insights? What would you tell them? How would they approach it? How would they go about it? And would it still make sense to do it?
Absolutely. I would say to them, just start small. Everybody of the company can do user research to gather customer insights, be it customer support, being the CEO to getting insights from LinkedIn, be it marketing through campaigns. There's every way to get information. You just have to be creative in the end to get the information. We as a startup also have to be creative because the access to the data is something completely different. We might have a lot of great data, but to get it in the end is a lot of back and forth. So, and this is the same for every small company, to be it a solo entrepreneur. You just have to keep in mind that the customer should be queen or king in the end, and you have to hear to them.
Yeah. One interesting fact is that we're working in the fintech, so finance, and it's a little bit tricky in the sense that there's a whole host of problems around privacy and customer data, and this is quite regulated here in Switzerland, but in general around the world. So in terms of challenges, could you talk about this a little bit? I mean, maybe going back a little bit in the past where you have worked, or in academia, or maybe research that you have read. What are those specificities working in the fintech? Because it is a very specific field.
Yeah.
You did work for SBB as well, and so SBB being the national rail service here in Switzerland.
We have to keep in mind that the customer data concerns only the customer. So first of all, customer data is should be on the own hands of the customer. But if he or she gives us the consent to use the data, we should have the possibility to engage with them. If they unsubscribe in the end, if they are not happy, I'm the first person who just unsubscribe them. But if we have the possibility to engage with them, we should be able to talk to them in the end, or to engage with them, to do services with them. At the fintech industry and at the banking industry in general, there's a huge trade-off between what is banking secrecy, what should be part of the whole picture of being a startup in the end. So a startup should just be, okay, what wants the customer?
Yeah.
At the banking sector, it's a little bit different because there's a lot of regulation, which is good on the one hand.
Yeah.
On the other hand, it might slow us down, or might slow the fintech world down. So it's a trade-off. You just have to try to be consistent at the data. You have to push as good as you can to get access to the data, I would say.
Yeah. So good UX is about enhancing user experience. But oftentimes it will take a next number of months, a long enough time, at least in the startup world, until you start seeing results or even revenue. So we all have a boss to answer to, or stakeholders, or board of directors. And ultimately, at the end of the day, it's about managing stakeholders and juggling between creating a good product. So my question is, how do you manage stakeholder expectations doing research?
I think we have the privilege to work in a company where the customer is in the center, and every part of the company tries to have this in mind. Yeah. Oftentimes it's a little bit difficult because some people might have a different opinion, might have a bias as well, that their opinion is the right one. And to bring just one insight into it, okay, for example, this feature might not be that important because they're saying that and that, might change the whole perspective of the stakeholders. So be it our boss, be it the board of directors, be it the other companies involved, from our mothers. So I think being in customer insights has the huge potential to change the views. I am not the guy who will push something. I just try to present the facts, and if in the end they decide something different, it is what it is, I would say. So
and it's actually, this leads me to my second question. It's very, in fact, you've touched upon a good point, because it's very important to be kind of open and unbiased, because the moment you start putting this direction of some sort, assumptions we call them, the minute you start having your assumptions, then that's when things start going sour, kind of, because then you stop listening to user. And in fact, there's this thing in psychology we call confirmation bias. So you heard it as well. So it's basically you read the stuff that confirms and reinforces your previous belief. And this is at the center of misinformation that goes all around the world. But my question is, how do you deal with managing this in terms of, like, as a product designer, one of the biggest assets you can have is to be open for feedback and to be open to constructive criticism. But so basically avoid having this fixed mindset and to be able to unlearn. So to really just have an open mindset. So my question is, how do you manage to not bring the biases in when doing user research?
So 2 important points, but what just came to my mind is you have to stay curious. So because there are other opinions and your opinion is not the true one. There are different shades of white in the end or black in the end. And the other thing is, originally I come from the quantitative side of research and I still love numbers. But to have a multi-method approach, be it qualitative interviews and quantitative surveys or case studies, is really gold, I would say, because the multi-method approach, so qualitative interview and a survey in the end, there is some truth, and this should solve some biases, and it should be in the direction of a little bit less skewed in the end of your opinion against the others. So you have to be open in the end.
Yeah. And in terms of doing research, what are those methods that you do? What type of research do you do at you? If you could just detail that, like surveys or whatever that you do. I'm just talking from a practical point of view, because some of the people who will be watching this, they might be thinking, okay, great, this is all amazing what you said. I don't have time, but if you could give them some practical examples so maybe they can pick and choose. And already doing any research is better than doing zero research. So So what methods do you use? What
Start small. So really, it doesn't really matter what kind of method. I personally love to do surveys because I come from this field. And here you don't have to have a huge user base. You can really start small. If you do an email in the end, where you inform the customers about the holidays, about something, just copy and paste some NPS score in the end, so that the customer has the possibility to engage with you on the one hand, because there is something he or she can do, and it's his or her voice in the end. So it's just where the client would refer your service to a friend, and then you have a score, and you have the possibility to learn out of this data. Then furthermore, we just started recently with qualitative user interviews as well, especially if you have prototypes. This is just gold as well, because here you could really, this is eye-opening in fact, because we are all in a bubble, especially in the fintech field. You see the Revoluts of the world, the N26 of the world, the Trade Republics. They have all amazing products, and we're trying to be better or similar and better in the end. But for customers coming not from this field, it's not like, okay, why do I have to swipe? This is so obvious if you have Revolut since years, which I have. But for customers who might be not familiar with the fintech field, with the neobanking field, this is not so obvious at all. So qualitative interviews are also key, and this might be in person or also just virtual, just to engage with the customers as good as possible. And lastly, because you asked me about the methods, to hear the customers if you have a social media channel, for example. This is also really important. Here our marketing helps us a lot as well. We use a product board for that. So this is basically a database where every insight we get from outside is stored, and then we try to prioritize according to the customer needs in the end.
Actually, that was a very good point. Very important, collaboration. I mean, maybe it sounds like a cliche, but actually a lot of companies live in a siloed approach, and yeah, there's product, there's marketing, there's engineering, and I've seen it over time and time again. Engineering and product, they don't talk, or there's always some kind of parallels between the two. So yeah, more collaboration. Yeah.
I would strive to that. Every new employee I don't know which company is doing it, but I heard about a company that every employee should start 1 week at customer care. I forgot the company's name.
Yeah.
Maybe we can
We
think
can
about
link
it.
it below or something.
Link it below, because this is really eye-opening what customers just feel and what are their needs. And here, as we are still a small company, there's still a lot of engagement from others in the customers as well. So
yeah, that's a very good point actually. No, nothing to add there. Lastly, a last question is, so for some of our users, probably they're thinking about, well, I want to work in this field, not necessarily as a product designer. Maybe you want to work in this field as a product owner, or like in your case, as a researcher, usability or customer insights manager or researcher. What advice would you give someone walking off the halls of university today and thinking about starting in this industry and becoming a customer insights person, starting out now? What would be your advice to them?
Just start. So you have to be curious. This is a key personality trait. If you want to frame it this way, you have to be curious, you have to be open, and really just start, because we all have opinions. And if you want to have your opinion heard, maybe you are not at the right place.
Yeah.
You have to listen and then try to translate it to the business and the customer needs. So it's more from a second row, because the product owners and the customers should be in the first row, but then you have to translate it to the business needs, and then so, and maybe you should love numbers as well.
Small detail.
Small detail, and I think that's it. And you have to you just have to be open to talk to customers. So quantitative, qualitative and that's it. So,
Ilija, thank you so much for the interview.
Pleasure.
It's been great. It's been wonderful.
Thank you, Alan.
If you have questions, leave it in the comment section below. We will link some stuff in the description as well. And thank you so much for your opinions and your feedback, Ilija. And we'll see you in the next video. Peace.